Hey, what is up? How's it going? It's the boy Don Slice in the morning, all even depending on right now. Today I'm coming at you with what if Naruto went to early / what if Jiraiya didn't waste the time skip, and it's gonna be so far as in parts 1 through 6, kind of remastered, whole thing just edited and stuff, and and re-recorded and all together, and then part 7's coming out the next day, so that's gonna be awesome. Are you hyped? I am. Just so you know, there's going to be some script changes as well. And it's going to be changed the story, but this is all canon, so yeah. And let's get into it. Alright. We start off at the beginning of the time skip. Naruto and Jiraiya would begin their training journey, going to different places, and a month into it, Jiraiya decided to take Naruto to Mount Miyaboku. Jiraiya would introduce Naruto to all the toads there, and after a week, Fukasaku would join in the training effort, and Naruto would begin to learn about Sage Mode. Originally, due to his serious situation, the fact that Jiraiya was dead, and he had more training, it took Naruto 1 week to learn Sage Mode. This time though, it takes him 2 with constant training. It would be imperfect though, similar to Jiraiya's. Fukasaku, seeing this, would tell Jiraiya he wanted him to train alongside Naruto, so he could also perfect the technique.
Also, real quick rant. How do you expect me to seriously believe that Minato flat out said he was bad at using Sage Mode was technically better than at Jiraiya? The same Jiraiya who trained at Mount Miyaboku since he was a child. How is it that the Sage Toad Mode, how is it that the Toad Sage was the only one who didn't know Toad Sage Mode, or at least perfected it? Minato had better control of it, Naruto had better control of it, and somehow Jiraiya, even though he trained there for so much longer than both of them, assuredly, he just didn't. It's pretty stupid. Ran over.
On the 3rd week of his Sage Mode training, both Naruto and Jiraiya would have achieved the same state of mastery Naruto originally had in his fight against Pain. After being able to access Sage Mode, Jiraiya has Naruto train his sensory abilities. Knowing Uzumaki have powerful sensory capabilities, and with Sage Mode activated, they would be unrivaled. After 2 weeks of practicing that and Sage Mode, he thought it would be a good idea to have Naruto go back to some basics, starting with forming contracts with the Toads of Miyaboku like he did. Then he wanted to find out the blonde's chakra nature, and found out it was wind. Unfortunately, Jiraiya didn't know any wind style, but decided to start teaching him fire style, and he himself would use it in conjunction with Toad Oil, telling him that once he got a handle on using jutsu, he could even make a jutsu in conjunction with the toads. And even though Jiraiya didn't know any wind style, he'd teach Naruto about the wind jutsu he learned about when he was gone. The reason he'd be leaving was to manage his spy network. Now that Jiraiya can stay at Mount Miyaboku, he can leave him there, knowing he'd be fine, and could still get in some good information gathering. So, as Naruto trained and worked on his wind and fire style, he would try to make his own jutsu with the Gamakichi and Gamamatsu. He then developed the Toad Water Pistol with Gamamatsu, and the Toad Flame Ball with Gamakichi. As for all of Naruto's current jutsu, they follow as such. Once while sparring, Naruto's Sage Mode went out, and he complained about it to Jiraiya. He then made 2 clones, and the 3 Narutos all began to meditate, saying that they'd all rush the Privy Sage at once. This would then give Jiraiya the idea this time to make seals to summon clones using scrolls, so they'd be able to transfer their nature energy. After testing the method, the 2 would both work to increase their limit of how many clones they could have absorbing nature chakra at a time. There'd be many long days and nights of training, and after 1 long meditation session, Naruto would come back to where he and Jiraiya lived. "Hey, Pervy Sage, I think I need a cut. My hair's getting pretty long." Jiraiya would reply, "Huh, just like your father."
Though he would quickly cover his mouth, wondering how he could be so stupid as to just let that slip. Naruto's eyes would widen. "Wait, Pervy Sage? You know about my dad? Hey, if you know something, you gotta tell me. All I know is that they died during the 9th House attack. Even the 3rd Hokage barely told me squat besides to that." Jiraiya scratched his head while having an awkward expression on his face inside. Okay, Naruto. I think you are ready to hear this by now. And I would rather it come from me. Your mother was a kunoichi of the leaf. A beautiful woman with fiery red hair to match her fiery personality, which is why she was regularly referred to as the red hot habanero, Kushino Uzumaki. And then there's your father, an incredibly skilled shinobi with spiky blonde hair like yours, the one and only Yellow Flash of the Leaf, Minato Namikaze. Naruto's eyes went wide. What? Are you serious, Prairie Sage? Isn't that the fourth Hokage? But the fox, wasn't he? The fourth was the one who sealed the Nine-Tails fox inside of you, yes. Jiraiya then stood up and walked towards his student. Listen, Naruto, I know it may sound strange to hear that your own father was the one who, from your perspective, cursed you. But his wife and your mother, Kushina, was the Nine-Tails host before you, and he loved her more than anything. Minato was one of the most compassionate souls I've ever known. Because of that, I know if he sealed the fox inside of you, it could only mean it was because he believed in you. He put his hand on Naruto's shoulder. Minato was like a son to me, so I think I have some room to say. A parent knows. I know those two would be extremely proud of you, just like I am. Naruto smirked, and when he looked up towards his surrogate grandfather, it turned into a full-blown smile. Alright then, Naruto chirped. He then began to walk forward and look back toward Jiraiya. Well, I better not disappoint, because after all, my dad was the Yellow Flash, my mom was the Red Hot Habanero. Then, I guess that's gonna make me the Orange Hokage, huh? As Naruto went back to the mountain, shouting, "It's time to get back to it!" Jiraiya smiled, looking toward his student, saying, "He'll make a great Hokage. Wouldn't you agree, Kushina, Minato?" From then on, Naruto would ask more and more questions about his parents, and Jiraiya would even sort of train him like them. He'd teach Naruto more about seals and the body flicker, and he'd improve his speed. Jiraiya during the time skip, with training Naruto and telling him stories, would begin to feel closer and closer to him. They'd start to see each other as not only master and student, but sort of like grandparent and grandchild. Then, the time to leave Mount Miyaboko had finally came, and the two said their goodbyes. "You two take care now," said Matoad. "Make sure you don't slip with your frog cutter now, Naruto boy," said Fukasaku. The two bowed to the residents of the mountain and waved goodbye as they began walking off. "It's been a while since we've been to the Leaf," Jiraiya started. "Hey, how about we make a bet? Let's see who can race there faster." Naruto responded by saying, "A bet, huh? Well, why would I do that when you still owe me money?" he said, pulling out his currently very empty frog wallet. A bead of sweat came racing down Jiraiya's face as he babbled. You still mad about that? Where'd you even pull that out from?" He then began booking it toward the Leaf as Naruto chased him, yelling, "Come back here, pervy sage! Where's my money?" Naruto and Jiraiya, after a while, finally made it to the Leaf. They perched themselves at the top of the Leaf's gates, looking over the village. "Hello, Leaf Village! Naruto Uzumaki is back!" Jiraiya smiled and said that they should go and look for some friendly faces. They'd jump down and walk around the village until they'd finally see Sakura, Kakashi, and Tsunade all conversing together. They'd begin to walk up to them, and out of nowhere, a box would suddenly slide in front of them. The box would yell out, "Sexy Jutsu!" A naked lady could be seen, causing Jiraiya and Kakashi to bleed from the nose. This was obviously Konohamaru. It led to him being knocked on the head by Tsunade and Sakura. While he rubbed his head in pain, he told Naruto that now it was his turn, but Naruto told him that he didn't exactly have time to work on the sexy jutsu, but he did have a lot of other cool stuff that he learned. Everyone was intrigued, and Kakashi then suggested testing the two's progression in the 2.5 years, in the form of the Bell Test. His students grinned and nodded. The three went to the same training grounds where their Bell Test was originally held.
Rules are the same, except now it's 2 against 1, Kakashi would say. Before they began, Naruto had asked Sakura what she's got. Thanks to my training with Tsunade, I've greatly enhanced my medical ninjutsu, and I've gained earth-shattering strength. Like, literally? He asked. Kakashi then said to begin, and Sakura jumped at Kakashi, who dodged, but with the momentum, she went to the ground and hit it, shattering the earth. I guess I got my answer. Alright, let's do this. Naruto then summoned Gamamatsu. Hey there, Naruto. What you need? Gamamatsu blasted oil at Kakashi, and at the same time, Naruto jumped off his back into the air, shooting a fireball in the same direction. Kakashi lifted his headband and used his Kamui, it consuming the attack. At the same time, Naruto saw an opening, and as he fell to the ground, he would see that Kakashi clearly wasn't used to this new technique, and told Sakura not to let up. He then weaved the appropriate hand signs and slapped his stomach, shooting a blast of wind. Kakashi was able to make a mud wall before he was hit, and put his headband back over his eye. Right after he blocked the attack though, Sakura followed up with a punch that was blocked, but sent Kakashi flying back into a tree. Naruto would throw a kunai at Kakashi, who was ready to guard, but in the middle of the flight path, he transformed into Naruto with the Rasengan in hand. I did this earlier when you used the mud wall and couldn't see me. I made a clone and switched places with it, and went for the form of a kunai because being flown like one gave me the momentum I needed to win. Kakashi smiled under his mask. You've gotten even more clever while you've been gone, Naruto. But Kakashi then sprung toward his knuckleheaded student's counter with his own Rasengan. Don't make the mistake of thinking your old sensei doesn't still have it. The two then clashed, seemingly being at a standstill, but then Kakashi's eyes widened, as Naruto's Rasengan suddenly seemed to start glowing brighter, spinning faster, and the wind around did the same. With this boost, Naruto was able to break the standstill, winning the clash, and once again sent Kakashi flying back. The Genin then threw a kunai at the bells on his sensei's side, causing them to fall to the ground. I think that about wraps this up, wouldn't you say, Kakashi-sensei? Kakashi looked up at his hand, witnessing the damage Naruto did during the clash. So, you've moved on to the next step of that jutsu, huh, Naruto? He asked. Yeah, I've just about put the finishing touches on it actually. Finishing the Rasengan, as it was originally intended. Kakashi would get up, and put a hand on Naruto's shoulders and look to Sakura, telling them, You both have passed, and giving a nice smile. After the test, Sakura would start heading back to the village, but Kakashi would hang back with Naruto. He'd tell Naruto he should spend some time perfecting the jutsu, since he said he's already close. Naruto would take the advice, and as he walked off, Kakashi would say, Minato-sensei would be proud, just as much, no, even more than me. Naruto smiled, and put his hand on the back of his head. Thanks, Kakashi-sensei. The white-haired man then walked off as Naruto trained to make sure the first use of his new jutsu would have a big impact. A day would pass and Team 7 would be assigned to their mission to assist the stand. Everything would go as usual up until they come across Itachi Uchiha. Just as soon as he saw him, Naruto rushed Itachi with a kunai in hand. Itachi would be able to parry Naruto's attack, and when the blonde began waving hand signs, Itachi pointed at him and said, Surrender, Naruto Uzumaki. This caused Naruto to stop and yell to Kakashi to cover him. Jiraiya would have still taught him how to break genjutsu, with his sensory abilities having grown so much compared to the original, he would be able to sense the disturbance in his chakra. He'd break out of the genjutsu before it could really affect him, and Kakashi and Itachi would start scrapping. When he saw an opening, Naruto would take it, and he'd shove a Rasengan into Itachi. But like in canon, it was revealed that it was just a body double. Team 7 would then hurry to Gaara, and they'd get there the same time as Team Guy. Fortunately, they'd be too late to save him. This would lead to Kakashi and Naruto chasing Deidara. Kakashi would try to suck Deidara into his Kamui, and seeing this, Naruto would seemingly slow down, though just a bit. He'd create 2 shadow clones, and he'd begin to gather chakra in his hand. He'd then yell out, "You're finished! This is the perfect addition of nature energy to the Rasengan. The final step. Rasen Shuriken!" Kakashi used Kamui to make sure Deidara couldn't dodge, and jumped away at the last moment, the final use of his jutsu draining him heavily. Though it paid off, as the attack would land and cause the artist and his dragon to explode. The explosion combining with the wind of their Rasen Shuriken to make an even bigger explosion, and completely incinerate Deidara. Though at the very least, at the end, he went out with a bang. Naruto and Kakashi, while catching their breath, would give each other a thumbs up. After that, everything in the arc will pretty much go the same. Gari gets revived, but Shio dies. Kakashi is still pretty drained, and Yamato would temporarily replace him as the leader of Team 7. And Sai would also be added to Team 7. The next big change would occur during the encounter with Orochimaru on the bridge. As Team 7 arrives at the bridge, Yamato would prepare by disguising himself as Sasori. The rest of the squad would go on lookout, which included Naruto making 2 clones to gather energy. By this point, Sakura would know about Sage Mode and how it works, which is why she would ask, "Hey Naruto, why aren't you gathering chakra along with clones?" He'd reply with, "It's because this deals with the Akatsuki, and I've gotta be on high alert. They want me dead, so I gotta make sure I get to them before they can get to me." After what she witnessed in the sand, Sakura understood where Naruto was coming from. After the conversation began with the disguised Yamato and the hooded man on the bridge, it was revealed that the Akatsuki spy was actually Kabuto, the traitor that was working with Orochimaru. The rest of Team 7 stayed hidden until Orochimaru appeared, and Kabuto sliced off the top of Yamato's disguise. Orochimaru would go on the attack and revealed that Yamato was using a wood clone. Yamato then signaled for the rest of his squad. Leading the charge was Naruto. He'd growl, "Give Sasuke back!" To this, Kabuto responded with, "I think you misunderstand, Naruto. It's not a matter of giving Sasuke back. After all, he came to us of his own volition." Hearing this pissed Naruto off. Once he felt himself succumbing to some of the power of the Nine Tails, he put his hands together and began concentrating, suppressing the Nine Tails by himself. He was able to do this because of all the meditating that was a part of his training, so he knew how to center himself. And while he could concentrate and suppress his power, that didn't translate to control over it. This intrigued Orochimaru. "Interesting. You seem to mature as a Jinchuriki, Naruto. It seems you might not even be needed, dear guinea pig of mine." Referring to Yamato, and his relation to Orochimaru was explained. This got Orochimaru thinking though. "I wonder who's stronger, the Jinchuriki boy or my Sasuke? Yes, it would be a treat to see that battle." This sent Naruto over the edge, telling Orochimaru not to treat Sasuke like he owned him. His tailed beast chakra flared up even more, and he had to try even harder to suppress it. Yamato not stepping in since he wanted to see if Naruto could truly suppress the power of the Nine Tails. Orochimaru then decided to taunt the young shinobi by saying, "If this is all you can manage, though, Sasuke will have no problem against you." Instead of breaking, though, Naruto successfully suppressed the Fox's power for now, and got ready to release a clone. But as he did, Orochimaru would say, "We finally get to see a new trick. Not that it will matter in the grand scheme of things. I'll still be taking Sasuke's body." This was it. Orochimaru's snake tongue had finally gotten him mad enough. It wasn't enough to make Naruto go berserk though, but it was enough for some Nine-Tails chakra to leak out. The chakra affected him to the point where his eyes became sharp and red, and his whiskers frazzled. Because of this, as Naruto tried to release his jutsu, being blinded by rage, he accidentally released both clones instead of one. When he did, the nature energy flooded his body, it being too much for it to handle. This caused the Nine Tails' power to take over Naruto, since if it didn't, his body would simply give out. He then began to transform, his skin beginning to bubble and then peel off. As he began forming tails, Yamato was going to step in, but Naruto yelled for him to get back. He then began focusing, making sure he didn't go berserk, but he had to do something with all his power, like release it all at once somehow or transfer it. Wait, that was it. Transfer it. That was when a plan that was worth a shot popped into his head. So, he made the Shadow Clone hand sign, as hard as he could began concentrating on focusing the chakra into the jutsu. Then through gritted teeth, he yelled, "Shadow Clone Jutsu!" And he created his monster of a clone. Its body was transformed and it was unstable. It began fluctuating and bloating all over. Mass was constantly being shifted throughout it. It was as if a rabid dog was let inside of his body. Naruto would be exhausted. As he slumped onto the ground, he'd mutter, "Go get him," and he'd give his clone a light nudge. His clone, who was fixated on Kabuto and Orochimaru, lunged at them. He launched its arm at Kabuto first, hitting him in the stomach and sending him flying back. The punch absolutely destroyed his internal organs, making him vomit up blood and killing him. He wound up crashing into a tree, but he died before he even hit it. Then the clone set sights on Orochimaru, who decided to put some distance between himself and Kibito, who chased after him. Sai then decided that this is where his mission would begin. He used the Super Beast Scroll and made a falcon he rode on toward the battle. Yamato, Sakura, and the original Naruto, who was struggling to hold on to his sanity as his clone got stronger, followed the fight too. Kibito gained on Orochimaru, and when it did, it tried to bear hug Orochimaru into suppression, which just caused the snake to be able to squeeze out of his body and shoot up into the air. He then shot out a massive amount of snakes. Kibito shot its arm out, smacking away most of them, and blowing away the others with the shockwave. Though the snakes were just a cover, so Orochimaru could summon the giant snake, Manda. Before the Snake Lord could get apprehensive, Kibito crashed into him. That annoyed him, and he immediately knew who his first sacrifice would be. He lunged towards the nuisance, but was greeted with a tailed beast bomb that was finished charging. The attack then decimated a large portion of the forest, sweeping Manda, Orochimaru, and Kabuto's corpse up in the blast. The two that weren't dead, Orochimaru and Manda, were now. Sai, who was watching the whole thing, and was probably pissing his pants, decided to go back to where the rest of his team was. As he was going back to his team, so was the clone. It was then in front of them, and the original Naruto was still barely holding on. The clone was so unstable that it was growing more tails as it fought. At this point, Naruto was still fighting for control, but couldn't move and had to dedicate all of his concentration to not transforming. He had a cloak at this point, and half his body's skin was beginning to peel off. Then an eighth tail began to form on Kibito. As he struggled, Naruto was suddenly thrown into his subconscious, and found himself in front of the Nine Tails itself. He hissed, "Why am I here? I haven't given up yet." The Nine Tails responded with, "Sooner or later I'll take over your body anyway. I have no need to bring you here." That's right. And that's the reason why I brought you here. Naruto was confused. He didn't know whose voice that was. He then turned around to see a blonde man with a leaf headband and a rope that said, "Fourth." Naruto read the cloak of the man in front of him, and he looked toward the face of him and said, "No," he asked, "Dad?" Which kind of answer of, "It's good to see you all grown up, Naruto." The Nine Tails then growled at the fourth. "You! I'll rip you apart for trapping me in this child!" Minato would then say, "You're a noisy one, aren't you? Seems the change of scenery is in order." And with a snap of his fingers, Minato transported himself and Naruto to a bright orange plain. Minato then explained, "I've been able to see what's going on the outside, so I know Jiraiya already told you about me and Kushina. The reason your relationship to me was kept secret was so you'd be kept safe." Before he could finish speaking, though, Naruto decked him in the gut. "Why in the world would you shield a fox inside your own son? You know how much grief that cost me?" Minato rested his hand on his son. Well, Jiraiya was right on the money when he talked about it with you, Naruto. I did what I did because I believed that one day you'd be able to control the power of the Nine Tails. I still do. You've clearly shown that you have some ability to suppress it. But still, I am sorry that you had to go through what you did. Naruto wiped his tears away and said, I'll deal. After all, one day I'm gonna have to become the Orange Hokage. Minato smiled, but then donned a more stern look as he explained the attack on the leaf that happened when Naruto was born, and what he believed about the men he faced. He then said, Listen, Naruto, I want you to know something. You see, with the current shinobi system, there very well may never be peace. That's why you have to keep getting stronger. Along with your comrades and Jiraiya Sensei, I'm sure you'll find a way to create the world of understanding our master spoke of. How will I do that? Naruto asked. I'm not sure. Even I wasn't able to find the answer. Then, if both you and Pervy Sage haven't found the answer, how will I? Tell me, Dad! Minato then just put his hand on top of Naruto's head and told him, I believe you can do it. That's a parent's job, after all. Hearing that made the boy crack a smile. Though, to that end, and at the end of you wanting to be a shinobi like me, no, surpass me even, I want to give you a hand. You've learned my Rasengan already, but while you've gotten fast like me, I know how to make you faster. When you see Kakashi, tell him I said hi, and I hope he's doing well. Then, ask him for the tool of my speed. He'll know what I'm talking about. Now, I'm going to tighten the seal and send you out. Good luck, my son. Naruto then woke up in the real world, and as he opened his eyes, whispered, Thanks, Dad. When Naruto woke up, he saw Yamato and Sakura on both of his sides, and Sai was bound in wood. When he asked what happened, Sakura explained, When your clones showed up, you for some reason passed out and it stopped in its tracks, just standing there. Right before you woke up, it disappeared. Sai's tied up because he tried to ditch us earlier and we're going to question him when we get to the leaf. When she asked what exactly happened, he said not to worry about it. More importantly, we still gotta find Sasuke. That was when Sai spoke up. I can help with that. He then revealed his mission and said, There's no point to my mission now, but I was informed about the whereabouts of Orochimaru's hideout, and I can take you. When asked why, he responded with, While I can't work with Orochimaru, I can still accomplish something by bringing back Uchiha, but most likely become Jonin level with the training he's been doing with the Sannin, back to the Leaf. And we can also raid the Snake's lab. Leaf will gain a powerful shinobi and valuable knowledge. While he was still restrained, he was used to guide the team to the hideout. As they approached the hideout, Naruto and Sakura both declared, We're coming for you, Sasuke. Naruto, getting ready for a fight with Stretch, and make a clone that would fall back when he went to the hideout. He then struck up a conversation with Sakura. Hey Sakura, he said as he pulled her back. What is it? She asked. Listen, I need you to let me handle fighting Sasuke alone. In fact, he shouted to Yamato. Hey Captain Yamato, you'll want to hear this too. I'm taking on Sasuke alone. Yamato was confused. Why would you want to do that, Naruto? Sasuke will definitely be a lot stronger than last time you saw him. This won't be that simple. Sakura then joined in. Yeah, Naruto, I'm sure you've gotten stronger, but Sasuke must have as well. More ruthless too. Sai joined in too. I agree with those two. You may have killed Orochimaru, but that was because you lost control. Is that how you'll fight Sasuke? If that's the case, we might die too. Naruto didn't let anything they said deter him though. He told them, You know what? I just realized that none of you have really seen Sage Mode itself in full effect. Let me explain. Sage Mode is natural energy mixing in with your own chakra. It greatly increases your power and sensory abilities. You see, the reason I transformed how I did earlier wasn't exactly me losing control of the Nine Tails. Sai once again added his 2 cents. We all clearly watched Naruto. How would you explain what happened? A little of the Ninetales chakra leaked through after I suppressed it and caused me to slip up while releasing my jutsu. I released 2 shadow clones that were collecting sage energy. Why is that a big deal? Yamato asked. Absorbing too much nature energy could lead to my body letting out or getting petrified. That's why the Ninetales had to take over. Though that's just the downside. While in Sage mode, I was able to lift huge stone statues that were many times heavier than me over my head. The 3 listening were shocked. Sakura, I've already explained it to you, but for you two, referring to Yamato and Sai, I use shadow clones to collect natural energy, and when I release them, the energy floods into me, which is why the fox's chakra slipping through is so significant. Now, you guys just stay back and let me work. Yamato and Sakura begrudgingly agreed, and said that they'd step in if things got too heated. Then, they finally got to where Sai said the hideout was. There was no entrance, so Sakura just punched a hole in the wall. As they walked through the hall, they'd see something piercing through the darkness. 2 somethings, in fact. It was the Sharingan, and Naruto knew exactly who those eyes belonged to. How's it going, Sasuke? What are you doing here, Naruto? Where's Orochimaru? Yamato stepped up and said, You've already taken care of him. Sasuke scoffed at hearing that, not believing them. Before he could say anything, though, Naruto would say, None of that's important right now. It's just me and you. Let's settle this. Sasuke's eyes were like daggers as he looked Naruto in his. Neither flinched. We've already settled this at the final valley. You couldn't beat me then, and you won't beat me now. Naruto smirked at hearing this and said, Well, how about we just hurry and take this outside? Sasuke then got up and started walking, and Team 7 followed him, Naruto having his clone stay back and meditate on the cool snake head. Sasuke led the group outside, and he'd walk ahead of them. He'd then turn around and lock eyes with his rival once again. You ready to repeat the fight from 2.5 years ago? 'Cause it's gonna go the exact same way. Naruto smirked and he tossed back his red robe, saying, This is gonna be a lot different from then, but yeah, let's do this. The 2 got into their stances and then ran at each other. Sasuke pulled his sword and slashed at Naruto, who was able to block with his kunai. They struggled against each other, and then both backed off. Sasuke would shoot out a fireball, to which Naruto matched. They then ran up to each other and went toe-to-toe in taijutsu. Naruto was able to push back Sasuke, and then he made a clone. Both Naruto started directing air slashes at the Uchiha, who would activate a stage 1 curse mark and blitz through them, not getting hit by a single one, and then kicking back the real Naruto and slashing through the clone. Naruto grounded himself and ran forward, using the summoning jutsu as he did. He summoned Gamamatsu and immediately jumped on top of him and yelled, Gamamatsu, jump! He then jumped into the air, and as Sasuke saw that, he once again shot out a fireball. Naruto and Gamamatsu were able to shoot through it with the Toad water pistol and knock Sasuke back. Naruto thanked the Toad and de-summoned him as he hit the ground. Sasuke was ticked off and said, Well, it seems like you have gotten stronger. But you've wasted enough of my time, Naruto. His curse mark then spread all over his body, transforming him into a stage 2 curse mark, and he formed the Chidori in his left hand. Let's end this. He then flew into the sky. Naruto then said, Yeah, I think I should be ready by now. He then released his clone, and as he thought, it had finished collecting energy, allowing him to go back into Sage mode. Get ready to get dragged back to the leaf, Sasuke! He then ran towards his direction, and jumped up, being propelled by wind. Sasuke soared down at him, yelling as his Chidori changed color. They both then yelled, Black Chidori! The 3 spectators then took cover as the 2 former teammates clashed, a huge light shining through the area, and then a large explosion. As the spectators looked up to see the aftermath, They saw Naruto standing there, and Sasuke and the wall. His curse mark had receded, but there was still an imprint of his hand wings on the wall. The three were amazed. Naruto that day had single-handedly taken down Kabuto, Orochimaru, and Sasuke. Naruto then walked over to Sasuke, who looked at him and said, "There's no way. How? How did you get this much stronger?" Naruto looked Sasuke in the eye and said, "Because I will become Hokage. But there's no way that I could do that if I couldn't save my best friend first." They then stared intensely at each other, and Sasuke passed out and fell from the wall. Naruto slumped him over his shoulder, and he went back over to his team. "Alright, let's head back to the Leaf. We're gonna have someone come back to this location later." They all agreed and went back to the Leaf, Yamato binding Sasuke in his wood for when he woke up. When they got to the village, they dropped Sasuke off at a jail, and then went to the Hokage office. Yamato, Naruto, and Sakura explained what happened on the bridge, and what happened when they met up with Sasuke. She said she investigates Sai, then looked to Naruto and said, "Well, Naruto, I think your performance on this mission was excellent. You did lose some control on the bridge, but also got a handle on yourself. You, without going on a rampage, did defeat Sasuke and capture him." She then thought for a minute and said, "So, I've been told that your tuning exams were interrupted, and I know you weren't able to participate in the latest exams because you were gone with Jiraiya, correct?" Naruto nodded, and Tsunade thought some more. She then said, "Well, Naruto Uzumaki, it is my pleasure to make you, officially, a Jonin." He asked if she was serious, and when she said yes, he flipped out, Sakura and Yamato congratulating him as he did. She would have the power to do this too. It wouldn't be like Kakashi since he chose to make Naruto study at first. She then issued him a flak jacket. He thanked her for the promotion and the congratulations, and knew who else he wanted to show. He took Sakura with him to meet up with Kakashi Sensei, who was in the forest training with Guy, to make sure he would be able to physically use his Mangekyo. The rivals, as they sparred, saw Naruto and Sakura coming close. Kakashi was going to say hi, but then saw Naruto and saw what he was wearing. "Naruto, that jacket, does that mean?" Naruto smiled and gave a thumbs up. "Yeah, I've been promoted, all the way to Jonin." Naruto explained his performance during his mission. Kakashi and Guy were impressed. Guy would slap him on the back and said that they had to spar sometime. Kakashi walked up to Naruto and put his hand on his shoulder. He told him, "I'm proud of you, Naruto. You've gotten extremely strong and learned to suppress the power of the Nine Tails. You even brought back Sasuke and are now a Jonin. I'm sure you'll keep getting stronger from here." Naruto smiled and then told him, "That's actually related to what I wanted to talk to you about. I did want to show you my new jacket, but I also have a message. It's from my dad, the 4th Hokage." Both Sakura and Guy were shocked, but not Kakashi. "Well, what is it?" "He told me to say hi and hopes you're doing well. He also told me to ask you for the key to his speed, whatever that is." Kakashi smiled a little under his mask, and then told Naruto to follow him. He guided him to his place, and Kakashi went through his old assortment of mementos. He then picked up a strange-looking kunai and presented it to a student. "This was one of Minato Sensei's flying Raijin. He gave it to me as a gift when I became a Jonin. It's poetic, really, to think that now I'm giving it to you." "What exactly do I do with this, Kakashi-sensei?" "Don't worry, you won't be at it alone. We'll start tomorrow. I'll teach you how to use the flying Raijin." Naruto then smiled and thanked his sensei as he clutched the kunai in his hand and left. After he was gone, Kakashi looked toward his mementos, thought about picking up his father way of fighting again. The next day, Kakashi and Naruto began their training. Since they only had one kunai, Naruto began to use shadow clones to try and make up for it, inadvertently making the training go even faster. During this period, Danzo and his route were under suspicion by Tsunade, but Danzo revealed that he gave Sai the mission to gain Orochimaru's trust, and then kill Sasuke, as he was a big threat to the Leaf. But now, as the Nine-Tailed Jinchuriki was able to return Sasuke and kill Orochimaru, everything worked out. Tsunade was still suspicious, but the other two village elder hags were on Danto's side and took his word. Tsunade scoffed at this decision to let him off scot-free. Before exiting the meeting, said, "It's not Nine-Tails' host. He has a name, and his name is John C." Back to Naruto's training, and he's gotten started on his own today. As he practiced making his own original move using teleportation, Kakashi would appear with a restrained Sasuke in tow. Naruto would be surprised, asking, "Sasuke? What are you doing here?" Kakashi is the one to answer, saying, "Well, our Sasuke here was just dying to stretch his legs." And while talking to Tsunade, who wanted to question him about what he was doing and saw with Orochimaru, Sasuke then cut him off, saying, "I told her that the reason I went with Orochimaru was because he could give me power, but he had nothing left to teach me, so I was going to kill him off anyway. Then I would go for my brother's head. You beat me to the punch though, Naruto. And after seeing your power and losing to it, it's clear that by training with you, I can get even stronger. So, I have no problem working with the leaf." Kakashi cut back in. Sasuke made a deal that he'd serve on the Hokage's personal Anbu, as long as he could still train. He's been let out of jail, but will still be put under tight supervision. He's also agreed to answer questions. "Well, what are we waiting for?" Naruto yipped. Then the three would all begin training together. In the middle of one day, while Naruto and Sasuke were sparring, Shikamaru would appear looking for Kakashi. Upon seeing Sasuke, he was very surprised. The situation was then explained to him, and then he explained why he was there. He said that Asuma was killed, and he along with his team intended to take revenge on the bastard who killed him. Neither Naruto nor Kakashi had heard about Asuma's death, as most of their time had recently been taking up training. They gave their condolences, and Shikamaru proceeded to let Kakashi know that he wanted him to lead Team 10's charge. He agreed, and after hearing that, Naruto said that he was coming too. Shikamaru tried to tell him that it wasn't necessary, but he again said he was coming, and that was that. He'd make sure to back them up if they needed it. The Nara boy could recognize in the determined eyes of his friend. There was no way he could convince him otherwise, so he agreed. Naruto also insisted on bringing Sasuke. With all of this, Kakashi told Shikamaru to wait at the front gate, and he'd smooth everything over with the fifth. Naruto and Sasuke went with him, and Kakashi persuaded Tsunade by saying that Team 10 would end up going anyway, no matter what anyone said. And with Sasuke there, he'd be with 5 other ninja and get them field exercise. Tsunade eventually caved in, and didn't end up sending the rest of Team 7 since they weren't needed. Kakashi had one more stop though. He went by his place and put something in a scroll that he stuffed into his back pocket. Then the 6 were off. As they tracked their prey, Hidan and Kakuzu of the Akatsuki, Shikamaru asked everyone's strengths and weaknesses, and he formulated a plan. When they found the pair of Akatsuki, the plan was similar to the one in the original. After Kakuzu fell down, being pierced by the lightning blade, and Kakashi began going after Hidan, he once again started to get up. Before he could try to intercept the sensei, a beam of light stabbed through one of his hearts once again. Sasuke could then be seen standing on the side of a tree, using his Chidori blade. I was originally heading out to fight the scythe guy, but then I saw that, surprise, surprise, you were still alive and kicking. Everyone's attention was then drawn to Sasuke, and while on the ground, Kakuzu released a heart, having it launch a lightning blast at Kakashi. When he saw the blast heading for him, he quickly pulled out the scroll from earlier, and brought out a blade. The one once belonging to his father. He then coated it with the lightning blade, and sliced right through the attack, doing the name of his signature jutsu justice. "You're going down!" was then heard from the trees, and multiple Narutos jumped from out their hiding places within the leaves and branches. The blonde then began to say, "I don't know what's up with that weird jutsu, but it doesn't matter, 'cause you're going down. Now take this, Naruto Uzumaki Original." The Narutos all threw down their flying Raijin kunai and teleported on all sides of Kakuzu with a Rasengan in hand. As they shoved them into him, they'd yell, brilliant flash! As the Rasengan expanded and burst, a brilliant blue light succeeded the bright yellow flash of the flying Raijin. Kakuzu was overwhelmed, and his hearts were all destroyed, and he was left dead in the dirt. As this was happening, Shikamaru was already running into the forest, telling Sasuke to fly above him while constantly casting direct light towards him, so that there would always be a shadow, and he did so using a small stream of fire. Shikamaru brought Hidan to the same forest paper bomb trap. After seeing his partner die, Hidan had begun to sweat, but tried to regain composure by saying, "I'm surprised you were able to kill my partner, but his ideals went against those of Lord Jashin anyway. I am his loyal servant, and by his will I'll kill you all." Shikamaru then, with a bored look on his face, used the Shadow Strangle Jutsu to trap Hidan in a bind of wires that were tagged with paper bombs, and he revealed the huge hole he dug. Then, looking him dead in the eyes and lighting one of Asuma's cigarettes, said, "What is a god to a non-believer?" As he then blew a puff of smoke while walking away and throwing the cigarette, the lid end causing the bombs to blow, and Hidan to be buried alive. After all was said and done, Shikamaru and Sasuke walked back to their squad, who were all grouped together, and he told them that they had avenged Asuma, smiling for the first time in a while. As they began their voyage back to the Leaf, they were intercepted by a man standing in their way who said, "I'm impressed. It definitely seems that this generation will surpass the previous. Though, that is the way it's always been, isn't it?" Naruto then walked ahead of everyone, asking, "What are you doing here, pervy sage?" Alright everyone, that's going to be the end of the episode today. That is, what if Naruto learned stage 1 early / what if Jiraiya didn't waste the time skip. And as you heard early on, next part is coming out tomorrow. That's part 7. So, you're on the whatever of your whatever. I forget the phrasing, but on your toes or something. But yeah, part 7 is coming out tomorrow. We're going to see what Jiraiya's doing there, what's going to happen, bang, bang, boom, whole lot of hype. And yeah, I'll see you then. Later.